Hi everyone, welcome to the Getting Started webinar. Today we're going to take you through a few things, including adding an employee, processing a pay run, some key business and employee level settings, and lastly, we'll take a quick look at the employee self-service portal. You should be able to see on your screen the demonstration account that I've set up for today. The name of the business is Payroll Plus. So on the dashboard, you'll be able to see 5 main tabs. You can see the Employees tab. Here you'll see a list of all the employees you have in the payroll account, and there is a bit of information about each one as well. You can see their name, a job title if they have one, employment type, pay schedule, and the last time they were paid. The Pay Runs tab. Here you will see a list of all the pay runs that have been processed in the payroll account. There are a few details for each pay run as well. You can see the pay period, the paid date, pay schedule, the number of employees, total hours, and the gross and net wages. Approved Leave tab. This is the monthly view of all the approved leave in the payroll account. You can click on any of the leave requests in order to see more information. The Reports tab. Here we have a full suite of all the available reports, and they are grouped into the following categories: payroll, employee, time and attendance, and report packs. Lastly, the Payroll Settings tab. This is an important section to be aware of, as this is where you can configure all the business level settings that are specific to your business. There are a number of default settings in place when you first sign up, but you can change any of these settings and add new ones if required. Now we're going to go ahead and look at how we can manually add an employee to the payroll file. To do this, you click on the Employees tab, and over to the right-hand side, the Add Employees option. There are a couple of ways you can add employees to the business. If you click on this down arrow beside the Add Employee option, you can see them. You can either start the employee self-setup. If you select this option, you enter minimal information about the employee. The system will then generate an email to be sent to them. From that email, they click on a link and they can complete the employee setup themselves. The other two options here are import and export employees. The export employees option is always a good one in order to get a template for which you can then use to enter employee data and then import them. The option today that we're going to use though is the Add Employee option. This will launch the employee wizard. The first section here is the personal details. You'll need to add in all the personal details for your employee here. You simply need to add their name. Middle name is not required. And their date of birth using the date and year picker here. When entering an address, autocomplete suggestions may be presented for local address types. To pre-fill an address, start typing in the lookup address field and click on a suggestion. This will autocomplete the other address fields if there are matches. If the suggestions are not adequate or the employee lives overseas, you'll need to select the foreign address type, which is an option here. Also note, outside of the country, all other fields are free text in foreign addresses, so there will be no validation done to ensure the address is correct. I'm just going to go here and put another address in there. If the employee's postal address is different to their residential address, Untick this box here, and additional fields will appear where you can enter the postal address details. Go ahead and enter their email address. And their mobile phone number. The phone number validation looks for 8 numbers for both landline and mobile. The employee notification is how you'll notify your employees that their payslip is available to view or download. There are a couple of options here. Now, none and manual are the same thing in that it means the employee will not receive a notification. This setting can be used by businesses that either print out their pay slips and manually hand them out, or to indicate the employee doesn't wish to receive one. SMS means the employee will receive an SMS notification, and if this option is selected, you'll need to make sure you have a valid phone number entered for the employee, and be aware there is a charge, which is 15 cents per SMS per employee. Email is free, and the employee will receive an email to notify them their payslip is available. The last option here is for self-service. Selecting yes for this option is granting access to the employee for the employee self-service portal. The employee will then be able to do things like view payslips, apply for leave and expenses from the portal. They'll also be able to download the WorkZone app to their smartphone, which is available both on iOS and Android. From there, they'll be able to perform these tasks straight from their phone. We go ahead and click Next. This will take us to the next step of the setup, which is the bank details. This is how you're going to pay the employee. There are a couple of options here. The first is electronic. This will enable the employee to be included in a payment file. The payment file can then be downloaded directly from a finalized pay run, and once the file is uploaded to your internet banking, all the earnings will be transferred in one go to each employee included in the file. This is a handy time-saving feature for businesses with more than a handful of employees. You then have manual deposit, and this is for businesses that are logging into their internet banking and transferring each employee's earnings one by one. The last option here is cash or cheque. If you select this, you will notice that there are no fields to enter any bank details in because the system is assuming they are being paid outside of the payroll system. It's only when you select manual or electronic that you will need to enter the employee's bank details. I'm going to enter some bank details here now for this employee, and you'll notice that you need to enter the account number and then click here to look up the branch code. Some banks, depending on which one, will have more options here for the branch code. Others may only have one. You can then go ahead and click Next. The next page is employment details. You can enter all the employment details for your employee here. The first thing you will need to do is select the employing entity for the employee. This field will only appear if you do have employing entities set up in the business. Today I'm going to leave it at the default employing entity. You'll then need to select the start date for the employee, which I'm going to select as of today, and the employment type, which will be full-time. The start date will affect the employee's leave accruals if you attach a tiered leave allowance template to the employee. This will be discussed further a little later on. The next field is where you can enter the primary location for the employee. You can set up different locations in the payroll file. They can be physical locations or departmental locations like sales and marketing. The employee's primary location is where the costings for their earnings will be attributed to by default if no other location is selected. If you click on the pencil icon and the drop-down arrow, you can see all of the locations that exist in the business. You can then select the pay schedule for the employee. This is the frequency you will be paying the employee. The default pay schedule is monthly. However, you are able to add additional pay schedules as required, and any pay schedule that exists in the business will be available here to select. You will then need to enter the pay rate for the employee. You will have the option to add the rate as a per month, per hour, per annum, or per day rate. Just a note on this, the unit type that's selected in the pay rate field here should match the pay category unit type that's selected here. That is, if you have selected that the employee's rate will be per hour, you should also use an hourly pay category. This employee is going to be paid $6,000 per month based on a 45-hour week, and they're going to use the salary pay category, which is a monthly unit pay category. I'm also going to leave the standard hours per day field here at 9 hours. This is what is set on the business details page. However, you can change that by unticking this box here and typing a different standard hours per day for that individual employee if required. The pay category is where you can configure things like CPF and payment classifications and leave accruals. I've already selected the salary pay category for this employee, and this pay category is default set to accrue leave and calculates based on a monthly unit. If I was to select a different pay category here, permanent ordinary hours, for example, that's an hourly pay category, you'll notice that the system does a conversion to tell us that $6,000 per month is the equivalent to around $30.77 per hour. The problem with that is the rounding makes it not quite an even 6,000. So to make it cleaner, we'll use the salary pay category, which is the monthly unit, same as what we've selected up here. There are already a range of default pay categories that have been set up in the system for your business. However, if you need to add more pay categories in order to change the settings, you can do this via the Payroll Settings Pay Categories page. The next field is where you can select a tiered leave allowance template. Having tiered leave allowance templates enables you to set up leave accruals for employees whose leave entitlement adjusts at a point in time during their period of employment. As a result, you do not need to manually change employees' accrual amounts once they have reached a specific date. Rather, based on your setup of the tiered leave template, the employee's leave accrual settings will automatically update upon the employee's configured anniversary in the pay run. For example, an employee in their 6th year of service will automatically accrue 12 days of annual leave per year, but a person in their 2nd year will accrue 8 days. Each payroll account has 2 default tiered leave templates provided. These are called the standard entitlement and 14 days annual leave upfront template. These templates have been designed in accordance with the legislated leave entitlements for annual leave, sick leave, and hospitalisation leave in terms of when the leave entitlement applies to employees. I'm going to select the standard entitlement. As you can see, based on the employee's start date, which is within 3 months of service, the system has automatically applied the first 3 months of service leave allowance template. If I was to select no tiered leave template, you'll notice that this becomes a field that I'm able to edit. Leave allowance templates will allow you to set different types and rates of leave accruals for different groups of employees if you don't want to use tiered leave allowance templates. If you want a group of employees to accrue 2 weeks of leave per year and a different group to accrue 4 weeks of leave per year, you can create a leave allowance template for both scenarios and then link each of the employees to the relevant template. Another benefit of leave allowance templates is if there are ever any changes to be made, you can just update the template and the changes will apply to all the employees that are linked to that template. The last field here allows you to select whether or not you want your employees to use timesheets. If you are intending to use pay conditions to automate various shift scenarios, timesheets must be used in order for these to be triggered. Once all the employment details have been entered, you can click Next. The last page of the Add Employee wizard is the National Registration Identity page. Here you can enter the employee's NRIC or PIN number. Just be aware that the number format is immediately validated, but it will not check whether the number is actually valid. The expiry date field is optional, and you only fill it in if using a PIN number. The nationality field is required. This data is used for reporting to the IRAS. The legal status is also a required field. You can select from citizen, permanent resident, tax resident, or foreigner. This field is used to determine the eligibility for CPF payments. To expand further on a couple of these, a tax resident is a foreigner who has been employed for at least 183 days in Singapore, while a foreigner is an employee who has been employed for less than 183 days. CPF is not applicable for tax residents or foreigners. The Employment Act field is used to determine eligibility for rest day and public holiday pay. The options are yes, yes, excluding Part 4, and no. Generally, executives, managers, seamen, and government employees are not covered by the Employment Act, and Part 4 only covers employees who earn less than 2,600 or workmen, trades, who earn less than 4,500 per month. If yes is selected, the employee is entitled to both rest and public holiday pay. If the second option of yes, excluding Part 4 is selected, the employee is entitled to public holiday pay but not rest day. And if no is selected, no rest or public holiday pay unless they are a part-time employee is applicable. The last field, the employee group, is used to determine which rates apply for CPF calculations. The options here are private sector, non-pensionable government, and pensionable government. Pensionable employees have a different CPF rate to non-pensionable and private sector employees. Pensionable employees also have a higher ordinary wage cap, being $8,000 per month instead of $6,000 for other employees. Once all that information has been entered, you can click Done, and this will complete the employee setup. Once the employee has been successfully added to the payroll file, you'll be taken to this screen here where you can go straight to the employee's file, or you can start to add another employee, or by clicking on Home, you'll be taken back to the payroll dashboard. I'm going to go to the employee file now to show you how to add a pay run inclusion. Pay run inclusions comprise of additional pay items that are set up against an employee and then automatically included in the pay run. The specific items include CPF adjustments, tax adjustments, deductions, expenses, and employer liabilities. These can be set up to include a specific start and end date. Otherwise, it can repeat indefinitely. To set up a pay run inclusion for an employee, you'll notice that I've gone to the pay run inclusion page on their employee file. From there, click on the relevant section depending on what item you want to set up. Today, I'll show you how to set up an automatic deduction to the Singapore Indian Development Association, SINDA fund. Firstly, you click on Add to the right-hand side here, and then select SINDA. Enter the deduction amount to be applied per pay run. Can be a fixed or percentage of gross. Today we'll select a fixed amount of $10 per month. Because this deduction is being paid to SINDA, it needs to be paid directly to the CPFB. You'll notice in the drop-down box, this is the only option. The preserved earnings field allows you to select an amount that the employee must be paid before the deduction is taken. You can select from never, once a minimum net earnings limit has been reached, or once a percentage of net earnings limit has been reached. I'm not going to enter any preserved earnings here. You can enter any notes if you want the employee to see them on their payslip, although we won't worry about that today. Enter the date this inclusion is to commence. You can select from today or on the following date, in which case there'll be a calendar for you to choose from. When should the pay run expire? You can select from never, on the following date, and you'll see this calendar here, or after the following amount has been reached. I'm going to select never. When you've set all that up, click Save, and you can see the details here. We'll see this deduction further later on when we create the pay run. Now back here on the payroll dashboard, if we go to the Employees tab, you can now see the employee that we just entered. You can see here some of the employee information. Notice that the last paid column is showing the employee has not been paid yet. Once we include this employee in a pay run, that will change and it will show the date of the last pay run the employee was included in. I'll come back after we've processed the pay run and show you how that updates. Okay, so that completes the first part of the presentation today. Next, we will move on to creating a pay run. From the payroll dashboard, you will need to click on the New Pay Run option up here on the top right. A pop-up screen like this will appear where you will need to configure the details of the pay run you would like to process. You will need to select the pay schedule and then the pay period end date. If this pay run had been the first pay run that I had run for this business, I would need to select an ending date manually, and then the system would automatically pre-populate the dates for subsequent pay runs based on the pay schedule frequency. As I said earlier, the system default pay schedule is monthly. That's the one I'm using today. And as employees need to be paid no later than the 7th day after the pay period ends, I'm going to pay them the next day. You'll notice that these fields were already pre-populated based on my last pay run that I'd already done. The next two options here are if you need to process an ad hoc or out of cycle pay run. The first one is manually add employees to this pay run. This option will create a pay run based on the information you have entered above, but the pay run will have no employees in it. You can then just add the employees you need to process a payment for. The next option, create pay run with empty pays, will again create a pay run based on the information you've entered above, and all the employees that are attached to that pay schedule will populate in the pay run, but they will all have empty pays. You can then enter the payments for the employees that you need to. Any employees remaining in the pay run with nil earnings will drop off the pay run once it has been finalised. Once you've got all these details correct, just click Create. And this is what your created pay run looks like. You can see here the pay schedule and pay period dates in the top left corner. You then have the relevant pay run tabs across the top here. The Actions tab is one I will come back to in a moment. The Filter tab will allow you to filter the pay run to show only certain employees in the view. The pay run can be filtered by any one of these options or by employee name. Then you may see the Warnings tab. If there are warnings in the pay run, it's always a good idea to make sure you click on this tab and take a look. Some may not require any action from you, but if they do, there will generally be a link to follow to fix the issue. For example, this warning here is letting me know that I don't have a payment file set up. When I set up the new employee, I selected the payment type electronic. This warning is letting me know that I have employees set up that are eligible to be included in a payment file, but I don't have one set up. If I wanted to fix this, I could follow the link here, which would take me back to the payment files page where I can enter a payment file for the business. But because I'm not actually going to pay these employees using a payment file, I'm going to ignore this warning. And if I want to dismiss it, I can click the little X at the end of the warning line and click OK for it to go away. If there are leave requests for employees within the pay run, you'll also see this Leave Requests tab. It tells us the name of the employee, what type of leave they have a leave request for, the first and last day of leave, and how many days the leave is for. You've got two options here. You can apply the leave. This dialog box here will allow you to select how many days you want to apply. If the leave requests spans multiple pay periods, you may only want to apply part of those days here. If so, you can change this to 5, for example, and then in the next pay run, you'll be able to apply the other day. I'm going to click Apply Leave here and show you how it changes. You can see here that we've applied 5 days. If next pay, this employee has decided not to take the other day, they've come back early, and I want this to go away, I want the system to recognise that there is no more leave to be applied, I can tick this box that says Mark as manually applied, and it won't show anymore in the Leave Requests tab. If we go back to the Actions tab, you'll be able to see the Finalise option. So once the pay run is complete, you can finalise it. At this point, you also have the option to delete the pay run, which is over here. Once a pay run has been finalised, there is no option to delete the pay run or make any adjustments. And you'll also need to be aware that if you do delete a pay run, this can't be restored or recovered. So make sure you are confident when deleting any pay runs. There is, however, an option to unlock a pay run after it's been finalised, so you can make adjustments. I'll show you how to do this in a moment. With this, you just need to be aware that you can't unlock a pay run if you have downloaded the CPF lodgement report. A handy tip on this is that the CPF lodgement report can still be generated on screen or to PDF via reports, and that won't impact the pay run being unlocked. Only if the FTP file is downloaded will the pay run be locked. This is to maintain the integrity of that data. The next option here is the Pay Run Actions button. Here you have a couple of other tasks available in the created pay run. You'll see the options to add a message, add employees that wouldn't usually be included in this pay schedule. You can adjust the pay period, import timesheets, export the pay run, or import a pay run. There are a couple of reports also that you can access. And then you can view the draft pay slips if you need to have a look at them before you finalise the pay run. The draft pay slips differ from the finalised pay slips by the fact that bank details are not shown on the draft pay slips. Underneath all these options, there are all the pay run details for the included employees. You'll see the employees' names listed down the side and all of the headings for the included information across the top here. I'll draw your attention to one of these headings, which is for the expenses column. If an employee has incurred a work-related expense and they are being reimbursed for this, the figure for that amount will appear in this column, but because expenses are a reimbursement and not an earnings, this amount will not be included in the net earnings at the end here. If I add an expense for Blake Anderson, for example, of $100, keeping in mind his net earnings is $4,800, we go ahead and add a $100 expense reimbursement. You'll notice that we see the $100 in the expenses column, but his net earnings have not changed. When you go to actually pay the employee, you'll need to make sure you include both the expenses figure and the net figure to give you the total you'll need to pay the employee. If you're using a payment file, both of these amounts will be included, but if you're paying your employees any other way, you'll need to make sure you include both amounts in the total. As I mentioned before, you can see all the employees listed down the side here. If we click on the new employee, this will expand their earnings so we can see the details of these earnings. Some of the details here include the pay category, location, any notes, the number of units or hours, depending on what pay category has been used. The salary pay category is a monthly pay category. This is a monthly pay schedule. So therefore, there's one unit at a rate of $5,000 being paid. If the employee is entitled to any leave accrual, you'll also see this here. Connell has not been employed long enough to have any leave accruals, but if we click on an employee that has been employed for longer, we'll see their leave accruals here. There is a button here that says Leave Balances. This actually tells you what their overall balance is and how many days they've accrued from the actual pay run. If we go back to the new employee now, you'll notice the Actions button. This is very handy to be aware of with a number of actions available. Here you can do things like add earnings. This is handy for paying earnings that are a one-off instance like overtime or a bonus. To do this, you would click on the Add Earnings option and you can see that it's created another line. All you need to do is click on the drop-down box and select the pay category that you're after. For example, if for some reason you're paying this employee overtime, select that pay category. This pay category is an hourly pay category, so therefore you need to enter the number of hours that you're after. If you change your mind, you don't want this line anymore, click on the red cross in order to remove it. Some of the other options on the Actions button allow you to add expenses, add any tax withheld that the employee would like, make a deduction, We already have the deduction that we've set up for the employee when we created his file. Note here the deduction for the cinder fund. This tells us, this clock here, tells us that it's a recurring deduction. We haven't had to manually put this into the pay run. It's done it automatically via the pay run inclusions feature. Back on the actions button, some of the other options are accrue or take leave. You can also adjust leave and adjust CPF. You can recalculate an employee's earnings if you have made any business level changes, such as changes to a pay category. However, if you have made changes at an employee level, such as the employee's pay rate, the recalculate option will not work because the pay run looks at the employee data at the time the pay run was created. In that scenario, you'll need to exclude the employee from the pay run, go back to the page where the change was made and save it again before coming back to the pay run and re-including the employee. The pay run will now be using the employee's current settings. This method will only work if the pay run is the employee's most current pay run. For example, if you need to change pay run data from 3 pays ago, you'll need to unlock each pay run starting from the most recent, going back to the one in question. You can then exclude the employee and re-include them. Once you are happy with the data, you can then finalize that pay run and the other more recent pay runs. Another option here is the import timesheets, which allows you to import timesheets for that particular employee, as opposed to every other employee in the pay run. Under that is also where you would terminate the employee from within the pay run. We can scroll back up a little, and if you click on the employee's name, this will close up that expanded view. The last two little things I'll just mention are these two icons here next to the employee's name. The first one is the option to mark the employee as complete. If you have a large payroll and you want to go through the employees and check them off, you can click on this option so that at a quick glance, you can see which employees have been completed. The second option here is the little pencil icon. If you click on this, it will take you to the employee's details page straight from the pay run. Okay, so that covers a few features of the pay run. So now all that's left to do is to finalize it. To do this, you'll need to click on the Finalize option, and then you will see this pop up where you'll need to configure the payslip and notification options. The first option is for the payslips. Publishing the payslips for employees is making them available for the employee to be able to access and view or download. You have the first option here, which is to not publish them. Then the second option will publish the payslips straight away. If you select this option, you'll also need to configure whether or not the employees will be notified that their payslips are available. Then the last option gives you the ability to publish the payslips at a time in the future. For example, if you want to finalize your pay run on a Friday, but don't want your employees to be able to access their payslips until the following Monday, you can set this up here by entering the required date and time. And again, also configure if you want the employees to be notified. I'll just mention at this point that if you have elected to publish the payslips but not send the notifications, the employee won't receive their SMS or email to let them know the payslip is available. However, they will still be able to log into the employee self-service portal or WorkZone app and view or download their payslip. I'm going to select to publish my payslips and send notifications to my employees. Once these options have been configured, you can then just click Finalize. This will finalize the pay run and publish the payslips if this is what you had selected. And now this is what your finalized pay run will look like. You can see here a few things have changed. You no longer have the option to delete the pay run. And if you do need to unlock the pay run for any reason, you can now do this from the Pay Run Actions button. Remembering that you can only do this if you have not downloaded a CPF lodgement report for that pay run. You still have the reports available and the payslips option where you can download the payslips if you need to print them off or resend. Lastly, you have the option to download the CPF lodgement report straight from the finalised pay run. Each CSN setup will have a file produced in the zip where there is an associated payment, voluntary CPF or voluntary MediSave. Otherwise, it will contain mandatory payments only. We'll go back to the payroll dashboard now, and I'll show you a couple of things here that have also changed. If you scroll down on the Employees tab to the employee that we added earlier, you can see that the last time they were paid is now showing the date of the pay run we just processed. And then on the Pay Runs tab, you can see at the top of the list the pay run we just processed and some of the info for that pay run. It's also worth noting that the paid date of a pay run is what will determine the month this data will be included for reporting purposes. Okay, so that has completed the second part of the presentation today. And in the next part of the webinar, we're going to look at a few of the key business level settings on the Payroll Settings tab. The first one we will look at is the payment files. Payment files can be used to bulk pay your employees via internet banking. You can set up more than one payment file and choose which one should be used for each pay schedule. These files are generated once a pay run has been finalised and then imported via internet banking. The following fields are available when the Add button is selected. Once you've selected the file format that you're going to be using, you'll need to add the account name. This is the name of the account that the payroll payments will be made from. You then need to enter the account number and select your bank from the drop-down menu. The branch code is the official 3-letter abbreviation of the financial institution that the bank account that payroll payments will be made from is registered with. The lodgement reference down here is the description of the payroll payment that will appear on the employee's bank statement. For example, payroll or monthly wages. Depending on what file format you select at the top, you may see different fields, such as the DBS login ID, because I've selected this file format here. The CPF settings page. From this page, you can add your business's CPF submission number. This will then allow you to transact with the Central Provident Fund Board, the CPFB. Up to 3 CSNs can be added for each business. Up to 3 CSNs can be added for each business. I'll show you here if we click on this one. We can add one for PTE, for example, to be used for mandatory CPF payments. You can add a second one to be used for voluntary employer VCT CPF payments, and add a third one to be used for voluntary employer MediSave AMS payments. The pay schedules page. This is where you can set up any extra pay schedules that you may need based on the available pay schedules that we have. Once you click the Add button, give your pay schedule a name and then select from the frequency that we have available, which is weekly, fortnightly, and monthly. The pay schedule is also where you can configure the warnings you receive within the pay run. This can be done from the link here. You'll notice a list of warnings here. Another feature on this page is the pay run automation. Automating pay runs allow users to not have to perform the pay run action themselves. Rather, the system does it automatically in the background. you can choose what components of a pay run you want automated and what components still require manual intervention. You can configure this by clicking on the link here that I've just clicked on. It'll take you through a 4-step wizard in order to set up the pay run automation. The Journals page. The Journal Service page allows you to configure a file export for your business in order to export accounting journals. Export files are customized for the specific GL. Journal service options include file export and detailed file export. Once you enable an option, you can click on this link here to go to the Chart of Accounts page, where you can configure all the GL accounts you would like your payroll journals to map to. We're going to skip a few pages here and go to the Manage Users page. Here you can add as many users to the payroll file as you like. There are 2 types of user, a full access user and a restricted access user. A full access user has access to all components of the payroll file, and a restricted user can be configured using a variety of permissions. These include employee group access, location access, reporting access, and clock me in access. To briefly explain the differences, I'll show you by making this user here a restricted user. You can see the 4 tabs along here. With employee group access, you can choose an employee or group of employees the user can access based on criteria required that make up this group. You can include more than one criteria by clicking on the Add Another Criteria, and then choose whether the multiple criteria must match all or any of the ones selected. With location access, you could choose a location or locations the user can access from here. With this type of permission, you can select a location and all its sublocations to be included. This setup makes it easier for managers to focus on the locations that they are responsible for. I'm going to give this user access to the warehouse location, and I want them to be able to approve, create, and view leave requests. Click Save. If we go back in here to configure their reporting access, you'll notice that they have access to all reports, no reports, report packs, or the following reports. If I want them to have access to all reports, at the moment, they'll only have access to all reports based on the location of the warehouse. If I want the user to have access to all reports regardless of their location access, I'll tick this box here that says no restriction on reporting data. The last user permission, Clock Me In, provides the user with access to no kiosks, all kiosks, or the following kiosks in the business. This permission is only relevant to businesses that use the time and attendance feature, which is available on the Plus Advanced plan. The last 2 pages of the business settings that I'm going to draw your attention to is the tiered leave allowance template page and the leave allowance template page. We discussed the purpose of these earlier when adding a new employee, but these are the pages that you can navigate to if you are wanting to add new templates to suit your business needs. You can do that by clicking on the tiered leave template and clicking Add here, or the leave allowance template page, likewise, Add here. It will list all of the templates that are currently in the business, and it is also where you go if you are needing to make any changes to existing templates. The beauty about having templates is that if you need to make any changes, you only need to update the actual template, and when you save those changes, it will be applied to any employee that's attached to the template. You can find more information about the other business setting pages and their functions by contacting your payroll provider or searching the knowledge base of articles. The final feature that we are going to discuss as part of the Getting Started guide is employee self-service. Employees can be given access to the Employee Self-Service portal, which is available via an internet browser, and WorkZone, which is available by downloading the WorkZone app to a smartphone. Both environments allow users to perform tasks such as editing personal information, profile pictures, and bank accounts, as well as applying for leave and expenses. They can also submit timesheets and enter dates where they are unavailable for work. Within WorkZone, they also have the option to utilise the clock in, clock out feature, which allows them to clock in and out of shifts and breaks with the simple click of a button. Once they clock out at the end of the shift, the system will send this data as a timesheet ready to be approved by a manager. In order for employees to have access to self-service, they need to be set up for portal access. You'll need to navigate to the Employee Portal Settings page. From here, you'll see that these are the options that allows your employees to perform actions within the Employee Self-Service portal. If you select the Access tab here, you'll notice there's a few different statuses. This blue, eligible for access, means that the employee has supplied an email address and can be granted access to the employee portal. This no email supplied means that the employee hasn't supplied an email address and therefore can't be granted access to the employee portal. And the green access granted status means that the employee has supplied an email address and access has been granted to the employee portal. If you wish to grant access to one or more employees, simply select the checkbox next to their name, click the Grant Access button. If you wish to revoke access, click on the checkbox and revoke access. If you wish to edit or add an email address for an employee, simply click on the Edit button in the email column and enter the email address for the employee. Once an email address has been supplied, you can grant that employee access. Now I'll show you what it looks like from the employee portal side. On the left side dash, the employee will see a variety of options depending on the permissions given at the business level. For the purposes of this video, I've given the employee access to all available self-service options. They can be accessed on the left side dash, and in addition, the leave, timesheets, and payslips can be accessed by clicking into each section here. The lower half of the screen allows for the employee satisfaction survey if this has been enabled at the business level. There is a report to extract employee responses to this, and next to that is the calendar in which employees can view public holidays, paydays if enabled, and approved leave. If the employee doesn't want to see leave related to other employees, they can click the toggle right here to hide those entries. If we take a look at WorkZone, you'll find the same functions. I'll show that to you now. And this is what WorkZone looks like. Here is the employee satisfaction survey. And from here, the employees can access timesheets, expenses, leave balances, and along here, depending on the level of access that employees have been given, they're able to access timesheets from here, expenses, and their employee profile. If we go back here, if enabled, as mentioned earlier, employees can also have the option to clock in and out by clicking on the Clock In button here. The option will then change to Confirm Clock In. You'll notice that WorkZone is informing the employee that they must select a work type. This is a business level setting, so if that's the case, the employee can select here and click on this work type, and from there you'll be able to confirm the clock in. Once you've done that, WorkZone will move to the next process, which is either start the break or clock out of the shift. Start break, you simply confirm the start break. Likewise, to end the break, end, confirm break. From there, once the employee has finished their shift, they can clock out. Once the employee confirms the clock out, the system will generate a timesheet that will be sent ready for an employee manager to approve the timesheet. The employee self-service platforms give both employees and managers more control and independence over a multitude of tasks. I'll take you back to the business dashboard now. We're back here on the payroll dashboard, and that concludes the Getting Started guide for today. I hope this has been helpful, and if you have any further questions, I encourage you to contact your payroll provider. Thanks very much.